Welcome back to Just Chattin. And this is the series of videos we do on Thursday and Sunday evenings just for our own entertainment. So for all you Audie fans, he is asleep on my bed. He had a traumatic evening yesterday because he got a bath. I didn't have a choice. That cat smelled and he had to be bathed. And although, like most cats, he's not crazy about getting a bath, he's not too obstreperous about it either. He will let me bathe him reluctantly. Believe me, it was very reluctant yesterday. And then he woke up this morning and there was a light dusting of snow on the ground, which is still here because it's been overcast all day long and it's been cold. So a little warmth, a little sunshine would have melted this all away in a few hours, but we didn't get either. So he doesn't want to go out, get snow on his clean little toes. But I do think he will probably be out because he's actively looking for sympathy and comfort because, bath, it was traumatic. Poor kitty. So yeah, I expect we'll see him. We're going to take a quick break for the intro, and then we will be right back. Well, we don't have a lot of news coming out of Montecito over the past few days. We do have one story. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I imagine that the silence is mostly because Nutmeg is lying low following the backlash, the justifiable backlash she has received in light of her apparent indifference to her father's situation in the Philippines. As we all know, all over the press, Thomas Markle is currently in a hospital in the Philippines. He lost half his leg due to a blood clot. And we know he's had related issues for a while. He had a couple of strokes. He had a cardiac episode. So this is apparently an ongoing condition he's dealing with. And of course, he's 81 years old. So yeah, this isn't good. The man is in a very vulnerable state right now. Nutmeg has not helped herself in this in any way by having her people issue statements condemning Caroline Graham. And Caroline Graham is a journalist for the Daily Mail. Remember, Nutmeg and the sock puppet both hate the Daily Mail. But Caroline has been there with Tom. Apparently they are friends. Whether or not, and I've said this before, whether or not this is a legitimate friendship or if this is something that is useful to Ms. Graham, she is, after all, a journalist, I don't really see that it matters all this much at this point. If she is there and willing to be with Thomas and give him whatever comfort and support she can, well, fantastic. It's hard to argue with that, even if there are ulterior motives. Still, the man has a companion with him. He has whatever benefits he can derive from that. And as Ms. Graham has said, it's important to him to be able to control his own narrative. And yeah, I suppose when Nutmeg is your daughter, the need to control the narrative becomes critical, because if you don't, she will be more than happy to hijack it and twist it to her ends if she can. So, with all of that going on, it just doesn't look good for Nutmeg. The reason it doesn't look good is because in her most recent reinvention, she is touting herself, presenting herself to the general public as, Susie Homemaker, the perfect hostess, perfect wife, perfect putative mother. And I suppose it goes without saying, perfect daughter too, because she's mentioned Doria in several of her With Love, Meghan episodes. So yeah, but that makes for such a conflict. So on one hand, you have this image that Nutmeg is trying to sell the public, that, she is just Earth Mother incarnate, making homemade jam and collecting honey from her little bees and bringing the little putative children out to walk barefoot in the garden, and ignoring her critically ill 81-year-old father, a man that she freely acknowledged was largely responsible for providing her with all of the opportunities that eventually brought her to the attention of the dimwit prince. So, yeah, it not only looks really, really ungrateful, but the hypocrisy is just oozing from every crack on this. If she were not presenting herself, and this is important because in Hollywood, performers, actors, actresses, singers, musicians, whatever, they generally do not present themselves to the audience. Nutmeg is trying to sell Nutmeg to the audience. Someone like Angelina Jolie is not selling Angelina Jolie, the human being. She is selling Angelina Jolie, the actress, the person on the silver screen. So we don't actually sort of crawl into her personal life to the same extent that we crawl in, we get dragged into Nutmeg's. I don't think any of us is there voluntarily, but she just thrusts this upon us. We have no choice. You cannot get away from her because all she wants to do is talk about herself. She wants Nutmeg to be first and foremost in everybody's minds. When you do that, you have got to walk the talk. When she talks about authenticity and her desire for love and compassion and brotherhood, and then we all see her. We see the reality. The reality is that her father is on the other side of the world. She is not with him, but she clearly begrudges him whatever comfort and support he is getting from his friend Caroline Graham. Now, as I say, I don't know what the nature of that friendship is. Tom Markle has been exploited by media people in the past. That makes me very suspicious of everyone. Caroline Graham may not deserve those suspicions, but she's certainly walking in the shadow of people who did. So maybe she really does care about him. I would have to say, in Thomas's defense, the people who know him do seem to like him. People do not walk away from this man saying that he's awful, he's a monster. People walk away from this man saying he's a nice guy. He's open and friendly and genuine and just a real person. So maybe she truly does like him. But as I've said before, it doesn't matter. She's giving him comfort. That's good enough for me. But it's not good enough for Nutmeg, who is attacking this relationship. She has attacked Caroline's right to be there. Her people, Nutmeg's people, have said that it's a breach of journalistic ethics for Caroline to be in Tom Markle's hospital room with him. Don't understand why. Apparently she has never published anything without his consent. She does have some information, and we can tease that out of things that she has written, that there's probably more she knows. She's not printing it. She's certainly not violating his confidentiality in any way. But it just seems so petty that Nutmeg, who does not want to be with her father herself, would begrudge him the companionship of someone else who does. That just, that is taking bad behavior and just rolling it in flour, deep frying it in fat, and making it so much tastier, isn't it? Yeah. So I get that she wants to keep her mouth shut right now. She has apparently figured if she shuts up long enough, this will blow over. This is not going to blow over. This is not something that is going to go away. The general public is never going to be able to accept a domestic goddess, as she is marketing herself to be, who cannot even manage to pick up a phone and speak to her own father in the wake of this crisis. No. So I would have to say, it does not bode well for her. And the commentators who are saying this is going to be the kiss of death for her, I believe they are correct. I believe people are looking at this and they are dumbfounded, because the idea that Nutmeg would cut her father out of her life, ostensibly over a set-up pap stroll, which she does routinely herself, that may be one thing, but a father lying in a hospital bed in critical condition, 81 years old, just to completely ice him out like this just seems petty. So, we're going to move away from that and look at something else. Nutmeg and the sock puppet have, in fact, come out on an issue over the last couple of days, and we are going to talk about that. See, the Australian government has just announced some legislation that will restrict the access children under 16 have to certain internet sites. Now, I haven't read the legislation. I don't know how extensive it is. If all they're doing is keeping children under a certain age from, taking their allowance money and opening an account on OnlyFans, I'm for it. I do not want to see 6-year-old kids wandering into strip clubs or bars, or there are a lot of things I'd rather 6-year-old kids didn't do. And I don't have a problem with the fact that the government enacts legislation to prevent it. You can't just stop at the local pub and grab a pint on your way to school in the morning. You just can't do it. And we consider that normal. The internet has been around for a while, and who knows, maybe we are going to need to put some protective legislation in place to keep children from accessing pornographic content, to prevent them from accessing extremely violent content, other things like that. I do not know. As I say, I do not know. I have not read the legislation. I do not know how far Australia plans to go with this. Do I think it's a good thing? Not necessarily. I certainly don't think it's a bad thing. It all depends on what they're hoping to accomplish and how they mean to accomplish it. And in the end, nobody cares if I think it's a good thing or a bad thing, because I'm not Australian. I'm not voting for their politicians. I'm not living in their country. I'm not experiencing whatever difficulties they might be experiencing as a result of social media. I know that TikTokers are engaged in all kinds of bizarre behaviors, young people with cameras going up, accosting strangers on the streets. I do not know if that's something that's widespread in Australia. For all I know, children may be presenting a danger to the public by emulating these TikTok stunts. I don't know what's going on there. Here's the thing. Neither do Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet, but that doesn't stop them from commenting on it. So let's take a look at what they have to say about it, and allow me to apologize in advance, because this is one of the most atrocious pieces of writing I have been forced to read in a very long time. We celebrate Australia's leadership for seeing and acting on how these technology companies are negatively impacting young people with little to no recourse or accountability, and feeble efforts from the companies to stem the flow of harms, the couple wrote. This bold, decisive action to protect children at a critical moment in their development sends a strong signal that a child's mind is not a commodity to be exploited. That was a struggle. That is, as I say, some of the worst writing I have ever been forced to read. But let's take a look at this. First of all, who the hell are Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet to be celebrating the Australian government's decision? It's like, gee, Australia, we approve. Aren't you proud of yourselves now? They are not Australian. They have nothing to do with Australia. They don't even have whatever marginal relationship they might have once had with Australia a long time ago when they were part of the British royal family. It's none of their business. And the fact that they are so full of themselves as to think that they should be able to look down from the mountaintop and say, way to go, Australia. We're proud of you. Please. Other than that, I would look at this and say, it's one thing to go after technology companies, which, by the way, I believe Australia is in fact doing. I think they're going after the companies. And quite another to expect that parents will take some responsibility for what their children are doing themselves. If you are handing your child a smartphone and letting them go off and access whatever they want to access, you have to take some responsibility for what they're doing with that technology. You've handed them the device. Very few children can afford the cell phones these days, because aren't they running at like $800 or $900 to start? No, this needs to be a little more collaborative than just let's jump on the technology companies. And the statement Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet issued suggests that all of the fault, all of the harm is in the hands of the technology companies. No, it's not. It's not. It is in the hands of people like Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet, who are constantly posting to social media. You know, it's all well and good to say, let's keep the children safe. But the reality is that most children are only passive observers of social media. They watch TikTok videos, they watch YouTube videos, the same way my generation watched television and my mother's generation listened to the radio. Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet, on the other hand, these great champions of children's rights to strong mental health and a wonderful environment, are actually putting their own children out into social media. They are posting pictures of their kids constantly, and not just Instagram photos. Nutmeg is merchandising her children, so they have been on her With Love Meghan show. They have been in the Harry and Meghan docudrama. The fact is that these two people need to clean up their own act first, because their putative children are more exposed in the realm of social media than most other people's children. Most other people's children are not having their pictures on Netflix. So yeah. But the fact is that Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet do not actually care very much about other people's children. We've seen that. They don't care about children at all, because whether it's their own putative children or other people's children, for them, children are props. Children are merchandisable quantities that they can exploit. And they're talking about technology companies exploiting children. Well, let's talk about Uvalde. Ever seen a technology company pull a stunt like that? The fact is, Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet will shamelessly exploit other people's children for their own publicity. Meanwhile, they will claim that technology companies are using children as, what was it they said? Quantities they could exploit? Commodities, that was it. Commodities they could exploit. Well, the fact is, that is exactly what Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet are doing. They are exploiting other people's children as commodities. So when they say something like this in a public statement, it forces you to just look at the source. Who is saying this? What are they doing? And the truth is, I have rarely seen people exploit children to the extent that Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet do this. They have exploited children whose mental health has been challenged, allegedly, by social media. I don't know this, I just know what is claimed. They've exploited those children for their own benefit. They exploit their own putative children, throwing their photos out on Instagram, and as I say, even in their television shows. The Sock Puppet claims he doesn't like it, but by golly, his photo is right in there with all the rest of them, so he clearly knows what's going on, and if he doesn't like it, he's certainly not stopping it. So I would have to say that ultimately this is a prime example of the pot calling the kettle black. Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet criticizing technology companies, alleging they are exploiting children, when in fact the people who are probably most prominent in the media today for exploiting children are Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet, and the children they are merchandising are in fact allegedly their own. But it doesn't stop them from exploiting other people's children. So I have to say that between Nutmeg pretending to be this gracious homebody, Susie homemaker, domestic goddess, beacon of love and sunshine and runny jam, ignoring her very ill father, and on the other hand, she, with her dimwit husband, coming out congratulating Australia for restricting children's access to social media, while she and the dimwit husband are posting pictures of their own kids every chance they get. At this point, the hypocrisy is oozing out of the crevices. It's really getting to the point where it's hard to imagine that people are not seeing this. For a long time, I questioned whether or not people actually put the pieces together. But at this point, Nutmeg and the sock puppet are actually putting them together for us. They are forcing us to see the two distinct creatures, the creature they pretend to be and the creature they actually are. And it doesn't look good for them. So that's what I have for you today. I realize it's probably not much, but as I say, they're keeping their mouths shut, which is good. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for that. But the fact is, doesn't give me a lot to sink my teeth into, but it's Nutmeg and the sock puppet. They're always going to provide some grist for it, the mill. They just can't help themselves. So, thanks for being with us today. I hope to see you all next time. We're going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. And in the meanwhile, have a terrific day.